Today we're going to change the rear axle bearing and the rear axle seal on this Jeep XJ. Stay tuned. Okay, other than your normal, socket set and tool set, what you're going to need obviously is get you a couple of bearings. These are the national bearing part numbers for the XJ 6408. Two of those, and the axle seals 8835S. Two of those. You're going to need this slide hammer, this bearing race seal master driver set, and this axle bearing removal set. All of this can be rented or loaned for free at AutoZone. Just put a deposit. With all of these, the deposit was about $160, and you get 100% of that back. I'm going to show you the order and the tools that I use. Not necessarily need to be in the same order that you. Obviously, you're going to need a jack. You're going to need some sockets. And a couple of jack stands here, and you want to secure your axle on the jack stands to get your tires up off the ground. And the first thing I'm going to do is we need to drain the differential cover. And you will need a 13mm socket to get these off. Alright, once you got all the 13mm bolts out, don't forget this one up here for the e-brake cable. Then what you could do might be stuck on there and take you a something like this or a screwdriver and pry this off. And once you get it broken loose, let it drain. I left a little bolt up here to keep the pan from just falling into the abyss. Alright, you will need some red RTV to put back. Red RTV to put back on the differential cover. And the next thing I'm going to do is take the wheels off. This is a 19mm socket. And once I got my wheel off, I'm going to take the brake drums off the back. Okay. I don't know if you can see here, but you see all this gunk right here? The axle seals are actually leaking. This is the main reason I'm changing this. I don't really hear a lot of hum, but look at all that right there. The axle seals are definitely leaking. Now that crud could also be a leaking wheel cylinder, but I know that's not the case because not only are these fairly new wheel cylinders, but when I changed the wheel cylinder out, it looked like that before. So anyhow, and I cleaned it all up with brake cleaner and it's back. So it's definitely a leaking axle seal. All right, so let me explain how you get this axle out. Okay, you see that's a little C-clip right there, and it is clipped to the axle end, but in order to get that out, we need to push the axle in toward the center of the vehicle, and this will allow that C-clip to fall out. Now you can't do that unless you remove this center pin here, and the way that you remove this center pin, there is a little bolt. I'm going to show you how you do that. All right, you can put your Jeep in neutral and rotate the drive shaft, and when you do that, you want to rotate it around until you see this little nut or right there, bolt, and that little bolt is what we have to take out to remove this center pin here. And that little bolt is an 8mm. Pretty easy to come out. All right, once you get that bolt loose, you got to be careful because that pin is going to want to fall out, and you also don't want your little spider gears in there to fall out. Otherwise, they'll be a pain to put back in. And this is what that little bolt looks like. See, it goes all the way through that pin there. So I can literally stick my finger in there and push up on that pin, and you'll see if you can see it there. See how it's coming out? And then I will grab it, pull it out, and there's my little C-clip there that I want to fall down. Slowly pull it out. And really, you don't even have to pull it all the way out. You could kind of leave it right there as long as it clears that pin. but I'm going to go ahead and pull it out, I think. Alright, I'm going to go push that axle in, and hopefully that little C-clip will fall out, and we don't want this gear or this gear to fall out. Alright, if I push in on this, sometimes you can hear it. Let's see. I did not hear it fall out, but it's definitely loose now, and I think what I can do is tap it, and I just heard it fall. So let's go take a look. And there it is right there. Okay, that's what it looks like in here. This is where the C-clip was. You see? And that's the axle, so I'm going to pull it all the way out. Now what I did is I stuck my finger in there and pushed the axle in, and then I put that pin back in to keep those spider gears from falling out, because I might have to beat on that end to get the bearing out. Now that the axle's out, you can see the bearings in here, and this seal is what was leaking. You can see it right here. So I don't know, the bearings look all right, but if you're going to pop the seal out, the bearings are cheap, might as well do them all. I'm also going to spray brake cleaner and clean all this mess up here. Alright, so now to use the loaner tools, what we're going to need to do is get the slide hammer and screw on the threads onto one of these axle bearing things. I'm not sure which one I'll need. It looks like I might need this middle one here. And a lot of people rent this, and if they get to rent the slide hammer, they do not come together. So make sure you get both. Alright, I've determined it's this middle one here. So very simple. You just kind of shove it back behind there. Now I'm going to pull the bearing and the seal out at the same time. So see, and you screw your slide hammer into that. There you go. Pretty simple. Alright, so here's a comparison. This is the original, as you see, USA made. I'm not sure what brand that is, but anyway, you see it there. And the National brand I got from AutoZone. They had two brands. They had Duralast and National. They have the same amount of roller bearings, and they had a Duralast seal and a National seal. Paid a few extra dollars, got the National seal, but as you can see, this is the mainland's finest for the bearing, and this is south of the border when it comes to the seal, but you know what you're going to do. And I'm also going to assemble these with these assembly lube from Lucas, because this is only lubricated by the gear oil that comes from the pumpkin, from the differential. It splashes that way, but if I put some of this on it, it will eliminate any dry starts. Alright, the next thing I'm going to use is this bearing driver set, and I got one that fits right in here. So what I'm going to do is put some assembly lube in this bearing, and we are going to drive it in right there. This is some slick stuff. And you want to make sure that your words are facing out. The words and branding on the bearing. I'm going to push this in as much as I can, and then I will attempt to drive it in with this. I'm going to be real careful. Alright, so got my assembly lube all up in there. I'm going to grease this area where the seal goes, and then I'm going to do the same and tap the seal in. Alright, now that I got the seal put in, I'm going to put some assembly lube on it too, to keep it from being a dry start when that axle starts spinning. This is the area your your bearing spin and your seal touches, so you want to make sure that's not nicked up. And go ahead and clean your splines off there before you put it in. I've got it all lubed. I've got it ready to go in. There's a lube on this right here. All right, I forgot to take my pin back out. I remember I put it back there to keep those gears, so I need to take that out, and that should go in. Maybe I'll try it again. Oh yeah. All right, now you just got to put this little C-clamp back in. Try to put it up top so it don't fall out, and then I'll push that back, and that'll hold it in right there. Okay. So I've got the other side done now. I'm just going to put the little clip in. And once I get the clip in, I'm going to push it back with my fingers. And it kind of holds it in like that. Just like that. Okay, so now that I've got the two clips in, time to put the big pin in. So once you slide that in, turn it, line the little top hole up with that, and put your nut in, or bolt. All right, tighten that down to an unknown amount of Weeknometers, and then she's all ready to put back together. So, final inspection, your pin is in, make sure your two C-clips are in there on each side of the axle, and I'm going to clean this out, wipe it out. Might spray a little bit of brake cleaner in there, put the cover back on, and fill the pumpkin back up. All right, I got the differential cover all cleaned up, got the gasket sealer on it. I use this red RTV stuff, and I'm going to put it on there, hand tighten it until it starts squeezing around it, and then I'll let it sit for about an hour, then I'll torque it down. I'm going to use these Flex Fill containers, full synthetic Valvoline gear oil, 7590. This makes it a lot easier to get in tight spaces. A little expensive, but worth it. Great thing about these collapsible gear oil containers, you can get it up in here and don't really need one of them little pumps. All right, we are done. This really wasn't a bad job. It was fairly easy. As long as you've got the right tools, anybody could do it. So I'm getting ready for a cross-country trip to get out of this heat. So stay tuned. I hope to take y'all along with me. Have a great weekend.